Depeche Mode come to terms with their own mortality and deliver what may be one of their best albums in years. My review of Memento Mori is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so you won't miss future reviews and more. Here's something I'm guessing most of you will relate to. One of my favorite parts of anticipating a new album from one of my favorite bands is going back and revisiting their previous albums. In the case of Depeche Mode, we're talking about 14 albums spanning more than 4 decades. While I was in high school during the late 80s, they were one of my first alternative music obsessions. Prior to 1990's Violator, their fan base was vast, but their music still resided outside of the mainstream. Some Great Reward was my gateway album, followed by Music for the Masses and then Black Celebration. Today, between their studio albums, live albums, remix compilations, and many CD singles, Depeche Mode takes up more space in my music library than the vast majority of other individual acts in my collection. So with the announcement of Memento Mori, their 15th studio album, I was obviously inspired to go back and listen to so many of their earlier works. Some that I just mentioned have never left regular rotation, so I tried to focus more on the ones I don't revisit quite as often. That's largely their newer material for me. I've enjoyed albums like 2017's Spirit, or its predecessor Delta Machine in 2013, but after their first few weeks of release, I rarely found myself returning to them. Hearing those again in 2023, along with most of the other post-Violator albums, I found myself satisfied again for the foreseeable future. What I mean to say is that while I enjoyed hearing all of it again, and was in some cases pleasantly surprised, forgetting how good some tracks truly were, I don't feel compelled to pull them out with greater frequency than I have before. That's probably typical for fans of many legacy bands. We all tend to gravitate toward the classic albums that made us fall in love with them in the first place. With Depeche Mode, I'm happy to say that they've managed to maintain a much higher level of quality output than most other acts with similarly long careers. Before I heard anything off of Memento Mori, I was expecting more of the same, another reasonably solid collection of songs with one or two standouts that I'll probably only occasionally revisit after another month or two. Of course, following the death of founding member Andy Fletcher last year, there was already a darker shadow cast over this release than usual. Even though Martin Gore has long been the primary creative force in the band, Fletch has been considered the glue that held them together. Would the duo of Gore and Dave Gahan still be able to meet our expectations? If the lead single Ghosts Again was any indication, the answer was a resounding yes. In fact, here's a song that strikes me as their most vital piece of music in years. I've always loved the darker side of Depeche Mode, but their best work always manages to strike a balance with the light in an oddly zen-like way. More often than not, their music over the past 20 years has leaned harder into darker places, which starts to feel almost oppressive, especially when you're binging from album to album. But Ghosts Again took me to a place I feel like I haven't been in a long time. There's a throwback feel to the song that calls to mind the pre-Violator days while also feeling fully contemporary. Strip away the vocals and this could easily be a new song from Churches. They were no doubt inspired by Depeche Mode themselves, so it's sort of a full circle moment. As it turns out, the whole album is a sort of full circle moment, and if anything, I think that helps it make more sense in today's musical landscape. Across the 12 tracks on Memento Mori, Dave, and more importantly Martin, seem to have embraced a sound that actually feels somewhat contemporary. That's aided, of course, by our everything old is new again culture and the fact that so many current acts are cranking out hits that tap into the sound Depeche Mode pioneered in the 80s. So, while for fans of the band, the songs on the new album may have a throwback quality to them, to everyone else, they feel modern and fresh. I'm not sure I'd apply any of those descriptors to any of their music of the past 20 years. Wagging Tongue is a great example. Here's a song that takes me back probably farther than anything they've done in a long time. Dreaming of Me was the band's debut single way back in 1981. Over 40 years later, this song actually resembles a slowed down version of that track, albeit with significantly more mature lyrics. It's not quite the banger I wish it could have been. I think it could have benefited from a bit more production, or maybe a remix could punch it up a bit. It's also the only Gore Gone co-write on the album, so perhaps compromises were made. For being bandmates forever, they almost never write together, perhaps with good reason. Another excursion into familiar feeling territory is Caroline's Monkey. Here it feels like the band tossed a ton of familiar elements into the Depeche Mode blender, from distant echoing noises to the default synth lead and bass patches to the lyrical and vocal callbacks, like the deep and solitary delivery of the word sometimes at the end of the chorus. I wish it all came together as something a bit stronger than it does. It will be comfort food for fans' ears, to be sure, but little more than that. One of my favorite throwback vibes on the album doesn't go back quite as far, though, and that's Never Let Me Go. This one feels like Black Celebration Depeche Mode, which for me is when the band truly kicked off their best era of music. Dave's vocals on this track are the most confident and aggressive on the entire album. And of course, the distorted guitars just scream Nine Inch Nails. This track is a massive wake-up call, especially so late in the song cycle. As much as Dave really shines on that song, the track right before it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Always You features some of the best and most heartfelt lyrics on the album, if not in years, in fact. But the song begs for better, or at least different, production. All the instrumentation, and especially Dave's vocals, are criminally buried in an ocean of reverb. I really wanted Dave's presence here to be amplified and for the synths to feel distinct and precise. Instead, it's all blended together in a sonic soup that turns what could have been a standout track into something far too pedestrian. But enough talk about Dave. How about a bit of Martin? I, for one, always enjoy when he gets his turn at the mic, and his lead vocal on Soul With Me is a refreshing reprieve halfway through the album. I really love the contrast of the dark, foreboding lyrics against the romantic feel of the music, and of course Gore's always angelic voice. The track is trademark Martin Gore, and I'm 100% here for it. Something else I noticed about Soul With Me and also the track Don't Say You Love Me is both have shades of Portishead about them. Both songs have a sort of edgy, sinister, almost cabaret-esque vibe to them that provokes a lingering sense of unease. Don't Say You Love Me also features some of my favorite lyrics on the album, like "You'll be the flowers that some lover sent, I'll be the goodbye note that's hiding in them," or "You'll be the laughter and I'll be the punchline, of course." This is one of 4 tracks Gore co-wrote with Richard Butler, who you may know from the band Love Spit Love. No? How about Psychedelic Furs? Sorry, too obvious, but do check out Love Spit Love. You will not be disappointed. There's a number of other highlights scattered throughout the album. I like the moody vibe of album opener My Cosmos Is Mine, which seems to channel some of Nine Inch Nails' more cinematic moments. On Before We Drown, there's this cool propulsive feeling of forward momentum that builds almost symphonically and in parallel with the message in the lyrics. People Are Good brings us the antithesis of the similarly titled People Are People, with its repeated refrain, "Keep fooling yourself." While I don't think there's any true clunkers on the album, there's certainly a couple tracks where things seem to fall short. My Favorite Stranger has one of my favorite song titles in a long time. I dig the retro synth sounds here that actually call to mind Ministry's legendary first album. The problem is there's no melodic development at all. It's nothing but 3 chords in 8 seconds, looped 30 times. It gets a little tedious. Then there's album closer Speak to Me, a moody track that feels like something you might hear during a melancholy scene in a movie. It's an odd choice for an album closer, but I do really dig the climax of it. It has a symphonic build to it that reminds me a bit of the Beatles' A Day in the Life, actually. That's nice, that works, but it's the second longest song on the album, and I think it would have been far more impactful at half its length. Overall, I have to say I'm surprised by how well this album came together. I mean, I almost hate to say that in light of Fletch's death not even a year ago now. To be fair, it still suffers from the single syndrome that pretty much all of their last several albums had. There's one truly great single, in this case, Ghosts Again, and nothing else in the track list manages to come anywhere close to that level of irresistibility. Is there any doubt Violator was an embarrassment of riches? But as an album experience, the duo of Martin Gore and Dave Gahan has actually delivered something that feels more vital, cohesive, and mature than perhaps anything they've recorded this century. Even though the title was decided upon prior to the death of their bandmate, the sensation of coming to terms with one's own mortality permeates so many moments here, but never feels morose. So I'm giving Memento Mori by Depeche Mode an X rating of 7 out of 10. In the aftermath of loss, the band somehow managed to deliver their strongest work in years. Once again, my name is Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, plus check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.